Aye.
Ms. Sauce,
Aye.
Mr. Usafero,
Aye.
Mr. Fran Anderson,
Aye.
and just to check, Mr. Sharma. Okay, so we'll proceed and hope that he will join us. So tonight's agenda, we will be reviewing two submittals, the Carriello residence on 1405 West Joppa Road and Banditos Restaurant on 31 Allegheny Avenue. Marta, are there any changes to the agenda? I think you noted the one, number 3 will be rescheduled. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Very good. Right, we'll move on to the minutes of the October 13th meeting. In the October 27th email that the panel members received, you received a draft of those minutes. Has everyone on the panel had an opportunity to review the draft minutes? I'll assume yes, unless you say otherwise. Are there any corrections or additions to the minutes? I'll assume none. I know everyone did review them. If not, who would like to make a motion to accept the minutes as circulated?
This is Joe Usafero. I'll make a motion to accept the minutes as presented.
Is there a second?
This is Matt Reynolds. I can second that.
Excellent, thank you. And all in favor, if you could all just say aye or nay.
Aye.
Okay, there might have been an overlap, but unless anyone says nay, I will accept that as a unanimous vote of approval. Very good. So I'm going to read an opening statement just to go over the process of the design review panel and how it was established. So Title 4, Subtitle 2, Part 1, Sections 32-4-203 and 32-4-204 established the Design Review Panel, otherwise known as the DRP. The DRP was established to encourage design excellence and shall act in consulting and advisory capacity to the agencies involved in the process for reviewing development plans. The objectives of DRP's assessment include spatial, visual, and functional relationships. These can relate to the topographical characteristics, the natural and built features of the site, as well as surrounding areas of the site, visual and functional integration of streetscapes, pedestrian pathways, playgrounds, recreational amenities, and parks, streets, and sidewalks, and to be sure that they are laid out in a safe and convenient manner and that parking is a positive design element. Buildings, parking garages, and other structures are spatially and visually integrated and suitable to their surroundings in terms of mass, type of materials, color, signage, and other elements. Plant materials are selected and cited to define the site and provide a theme, frame views, enhance architecture and the street character, and improve the microclimate, provide transition between dissimilar uses, and screen objectionable views and uses, and also reduce noise levels and glare. In carrying out its duties, the DRP utilizes guidelines, plans, and architectural principles in the Comprehensive Manual of Development Policies and/or Master Plan, as well as other guidelines. Certain areas of the county were designated by the County Council to require review by the DRP. If a site falls within it, the panel will provide technical review of the proposed projects. To note, issues relative to zoning, setback relief, environmental and stormwater management, traffic regulations do not fall under the purview of the DRP and are regulated through the appropriate agencies. Therefore, we do not review or address those items. And the panel, as we noted, consists of 9 members. All are professionals with practical knowledge in matters of design, and for the purposes of making recommendations on a particular project, 3 of those members shall constitute a quorum. We have a quorum this evening, so we will proceed. The attendance and comments of each member will be recorded in the minutes, which will be an open record and available along with all documents submitted to the panel for inspection and copying by the public. There will be an opportunity for the community to offer comments and suggestions at the conclusion of the applicant's presentation. I'll just note that there are up on screen, in Marta's shared screen, you can see how to submit comments, so please follow those directions on the left side of the screen. When a speaker is called up to speak, please keep your comments focused on design perspectives within your allotted 2 minutes time. If you're speaking on behalf of a community group, you will get 5 minutes. At the conclusion of the meeting, the Department of Planning will sum up the recommendations of the panel before a motion for vote is suggested. Recent legislation has changed the panel's recommendation to be advisory on the hearing officer and the various county agencies, unless the hearing officer or agency find that the panel's actions constitute an abuse of its discretion or are unsupported by the documentation and evidence presented. Disposition of the plan will be determined as either approved with conditions, or additional review with a second meeting being required. So with that, we will move to the first agenda item, which will be the Carriello residence on 1405 Joppa Road. And presenter, you have the floor. Marta will move through your slides. Please let her know to advance. The floor is yours.
Thanks, Cecily. My name is Fred Shekels. I'm the owner of Tenants Homes. I'm here tonight with my client, Erica Carriello, and my work colleague, Allie Jones, who's done a lot of the heavy lifting on the selections. I'm going to move pretty quickly. There's 49 pages, but I'm here, but I know everyone's seen this and reviewed it, so I'm going to move pretty quick. Next slide, please. This project is proposed at 1405 West Joppa Road. It's the last lot within a 3-lot minor subdivision known as the Knott property. 2 of the 3 lots have recently been constructed as recently as 2018 and 19, so some members of this panel might have seen those proposals. This is within the limits of the Ruxin Riderwood Golden Design Review Area, which is why we're here tonight. Next slide, please. This is the subject property. Next slide. Another one showing the zoning, DR2. Next slide. This is a look from the driveway or the lot out to West Joppa Road. The property, this lot itself is 2.5 acres, of which about 0.7 acres is within a forest buffer. So these mature trees provide a good buffer to West Joppa Road, not just for this house, but the other 2 houses on the cul-de-sac. Next slide, please. To the right is the lot we're building on. Straight ahead is the adjacent property to the west. Next slide, please. Another look at the vacant lot. It's relatively flat, a little bit of fall from right to left. Next slide, please. Again, this is looking back up the common drive. Great mature trees in the backyard. Next slide, please. These are the 2 houses on the cul-de-sac. 1401 has some early American influences. 1403 is a lot of what we're seeing now, which is modern farmhouse, which is, and both houses are really consistent with our proposal tonight. We're about 3,500 square feet, again, consistent with a couple of houses on this cul-de-sac. Next slide, please. Little close-up. Next slide, please. Another close-up of 1403. Next slide, please. This is a minor subdivision plan. The orientation of our house is consistent with the minor sub plan. Next slide, please. Next slide. This is the permit site plan. But next slide, please, because I do want to talk a little bit more about what we've done here. So this is the landscape plan. There are mature trees in the backyard, but we're providing some augmentation, particularly with a buffer. One, to provide privacy for Erica, and also as you're coming down, that entry sequence into the cul-de-sac, we wanted to provide some screening so you're not looking immediately at the back and side of the proposed house. Next slide, please. I'm going to skip over a lot of these because some of it is redundant. We do a lot of our design in-house and then go out to an architect for our permit plans. So when you see something with a dimension that's in CAD, that's from our architect. If you're looking for any particular dimensions, that's what's going to dictate. But we've provided our design as well. Next slide, please. Next slide. This is the rear. Next slide. Garage elevation. Next slide, please. This is the elevation that you'd see coming down a common driveway. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Next slide. Next slide. Next slide, please. Next slide. Next slide, please. One more slide, I believe. Okay, here's a good place to stop for a second. So exterior materials, siding is proposed to be James Hardy fiber cement. The lap siding will be the cobblestone in the cedar mill finish. The board and batten is a smooth finish board that's going to be timber bark in color. Roof color is pewter wood. The standing seam metal roof above the front porch is matte black with a onyx or black front door. Front porch columns will be natural cedar wrapped, and a little bit of there's not a lot of exposed foundation wall because it is a full in ground, but it'll be real natural veneer stone, chocolate gray in color with gray mortar. Next slide, please. Some more details. Next slide, please. Again, a close-up of the roof probably doesn't do it any justice up close, but next slide, please. Here's the actual front door. Next slide, please. Some light fixtures. These are the light fixtures along the front door. By the way, the windows are Marvin Elevate series. It's a fiberglass composite exterior and a wood interior window. It's a nice window from Marvin. Next slide, please. This is the light fixture above the garage doors and the window on the front facade. Next slide, please. This is a section from Joppa Road down to the house. There's actually about 15 feet of fall, which you don't really appreciate when you do the drive, and I think that's because of the wooded buffer in between. You're not noticing 15 feet elevation. Next slide, please. Some sections. Next slide. Next slide. Unfinished basement. Next slide. Next slide. Next slide. This is a first floor owner suite. Large open floor plan, 12-foot glass slider doors out to the screen ports that you're going to see as you come down the common drive. Next slide, please. Next slide. Next slide. Next slide, please. These are the neighbors that we contacted about the project. We did get one response back from the neighbor immediately to the west, and we had a Zoom call, I believe, on November 4th. The only really question was how long is the construction going to take, which we indicated to be hopefully less than a year. Supply chain's a mess right now, which I'm sure everyone knows about, but I think we can get it done in 10 or 11 months. The other two homeowners on the cul-de-sac, Erica's met. I think she even spent some time over Halloween with them, so I think everyone's in pretty good shape in the neighborhood. Next slide, please. And this is just the certification, but I'm effectively done. So I'm going to open it up at this point to any questions or comments that you might have.
First, we'll go to Marta and ask if there are any speakers from the public that have signed up who wish to speak at this time. Marta, I'm not hearing you.
Sorry about that. No, we don't have any speakers signed up, but I just would like to confirm with Jan and Brad. Do we have anyone from your?
Yeah, I have nothing in the chat or.
Same. No,
Okay.
not me.
So no speakers.
Thank you. I do believe we saw those letters of support. So I will open it up to the panel members for discussion. I'm gonna first go to Fran Anderson.
Actually, I think it looks great. It fits well with the cul-de-sac, the other architecture there. I saw the letter from Mr. Mudd, your neighbor. He's pretty well versed in real estate matters, as I think some might know. My only comment actually was, and I didn't get a real close look at your landscape plan, was for your benefit, was cars coming down your drive, their headlights, coming in your dining area, your family room, your kitchen, and your screened-in area. Just pay close attention to your screening landscaping there, because you're going to get some headlights in there sometimes of the year. But I think it looks great and it fits really well, and I don't really have any other comments. Thanks.
Go to Ms. Raw next.
I don't have any comments either. I think it looks good.
Thank you. Mr. Reynolds?
Just the same comments that Fran had. Those were the only comments I had about the plan, just increasing the buffer, but otherwise look great.
Thank you. I saw that Mr. Sharma has joined us, I believe. Mr. Sharma, any comments?
Yes, okay. I heard very low, so there was some speaker issue. But yes, I don't have any comment. It looks good. They have a good support of neighbors, so it looks all good.
Ms. Sauce?
I have the similar comments of adding more buffering along the driveway, and I also would add a little bit of buffering along the garage side also, just to screen that from the neighbors. Other than that, I think it looks great.
Mr. Yusufero?
Good evening. I have no comments. I think it's nicely executed and looks great. So that's it.
Very good. So I'll just add in, as probably those of you who've heard my comments in the past, I know that one other house has some boxed eave rake returns. I don't think of those as very traditional, but I do see the other house on the cul-de-sac has those, and given the very little streetscape or public realm exposure, I think that's fine. I would have the similar comment. The stone veneer, I think that's manufactured stone, but in its small exposure, I think that's suitable for this. I did have a question on the cementitious siding. I believe there was both wood grain on the lap siding and then smooth hardy on the board and batten, unless I read that incorrectly. And I was wondering why the two different textures on the elevation.
I really think that was just on preference when Erica saw that in person. Is your recommendation to match smooth with smooth?
Yeah, typically, I mean, I don't, unless there's a specific, rough hewn character of the architecture, I would always recommend smooth because it mimics what you would find in wood siding. We don't typically see that wood grain unless, again, it's like a cedar look or a rustic look, which I don't think is really appropriate to this architecture. But again, it has very minimal streetscape public realm exposure. So if that's what the homeowner wants, I'm not objecting to that. So I think that's fine.
Okay, thank you.
The last comment I would make is the decision to go with concrete on the porch. Again, that's a personal choice. I just would think with a house of this caliber, you would tend to see a flagstone paver or something else on the surface, on the walking surface of the porch. And I believe it indicates concrete. Again, just curious on that decision.
I believe it just came down to budget and cost, but I'll circle back with Eric on both these issues if I could, and then advise planning staff on our direction.
Yeah, I don't intend to put these in the motion. I just, just flag those as things that I would typically note in my standard review. But again, this is quite a distance. So I just wanted to go back and ask the panel. I do see on the landscape plan, there is some buffering along the driveway. I just wanted to ask the panel members if they thought seeing this again, that there was a need for additional. I think they have placed that landscape to shield the house and also just the rear yard space as was mentioned in the presentation. Just wanted to ask the panel again, those that made the comment, if they feel seeing this again, that there is a need for additional. I understand there's the opposite side where there's probably not a lot of screening for the driveway. Does anyone want to revisit that?
Yeah, Cicely, this is Matt. I think it's okay. I think it's just a recommendation just for them to keep in mind. I think as Fran mentioned, just with the headlights and the usability might just be something to consider.
Very good. Well, with that, unless there's any further discussion, I would like to ask if someone would like to make a motion.
It's Fran. I'll do it because this is way easier than phone. And I think all our comments were just basically, recommendations to the architect and the owner. So I would just move that we approve the project as submitted.
Thank you, Fran. Is there a second to that motion?
This is Hyun. I will second that motion.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
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 I think that was unanimous, but if there are any nays, speak now. Otherwise, that motion carries. Very good. With
Thank
that,
you.
Yeah, thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Woohoo.
Excellent. Okay. So now with that, we'll move on to item 2, the Banditos Restaurant on 31 Allegheny Avenue in downtown Towson. Presenter, the floor is yours, and please direct Marta to advance the slides.
Excellent. Good evening, everyone. I'm Dustin Watson. I am the owner of the architecture and design firm In Place Design. And we have the owner of Banditos and the owner of the building on as well, Sean White. Yeah, you can go ahead and advance, Marta. Yeah, so the project involves, there's the existing Cafe Troya space is going to be taken from one type of restaurant to a new type of restaurant. Sean and his team bought the building and we're trying to, limit, we're replacing a restaurant with a restaurant. So with that, we're also looking at exterior modifications to the main parts of the building. Go ahead and advance. Locations on Allegheny. On the west side is parking lot. On the east side is a small building and another parking lot. Go ahead and advance. This is the front as it exists today. There are, it's a black concrete panel building. Has existing awnings, red awnings, oval awnings that will be coming off. There's a couple of street trees and a street light parking in the front. Going to the next. This is the side facing the main parking lot on the west, which currently has a couple of murals and a box sign for the restaurant and a box sign for one of the office tenants above. Go ahead. This is at the lower end of the site. There's significant grade from Allegheny down to the alley in the back. This lower portion currently has a mural on it, which we will be changing out. And this is the existing fire escape for the office tenants above. Go ahead. This is the rear of the building. There is an existing patio deck on the back for the main floor of the restaurant, as well as a patio on the ground level of the restaurant, the basement level. Go ahead. You guys can hear me okay, right?
Yes, you're fine, Justin.
Sorry. This is the view from Allegheny, looking west towards the building. You'll see there's a small building on the front side there. Most of that facade is covered up. There currently exist a couple of box signs as well, Cafe Troya and the yoga tenant. Go ahead. This is the overall site plan. You can see the deck in the back. There are 2 existing tree wells at the front and big parking lot. We're not doing a whole lot. We're not doing anything with the existing sidewalk. Go ahead. This is the floor plan. The main couple of items, the current restaurant, you enter the restaurant from the office lobby. We're changing that to have the entrance of the restaurant right onto the sidewalk directly. Currently there are 2 double doors, glass doors that face out onto the sidewalk from the restaurant. We're removing those and putting 3 glass roll-up doors. So we're increasing the amount of glass on the sidewalk facing, onto the sidewalk, and also having the ability to open up and kind of the restaurant becomes kind of an extension to the sidewalk. And you'll see on the rear where the deck is, we are removing 2 windows and replacing them with folding doors so that it opens up directly into the onto the deck, so we can open up the whole upper level of the restaurant. Next slide. This is the lower level, which faces the alley. On the left-hand side is the outdoor patio. We have some seating on the interior. Most of the basement is the kitchen and all of the equipment related to running a restaurant. Next slide. This is the front elevation. What we're proposing is a sign band above the new rolling doors that is made of a wood material to kind of give it some warmth. Right now, the building's a big concrete panel building, trying to make it a little bit more friendly, as well as creating a new entry with a small metal canopy. Metal canopy is about 3 feet by 5 feet. And the office lobby is going to remain where it is. Next slide. This is the facade facing the parking lot. Our proposal is to paint that facade with a mural, as well as have locations for new tenants or the office tenants above, which would be painted on at a later date in those blocks on the left. The low concrete block wall in the back, we plan to do another type of mural related to the restaurant as well. Next, please. The rear of Banditos, we proposed 1 sign kind of above the outdoor deck. We're going to paint the back fence and paint the back of the building as well. Next slide. And then that facade, also painting that with the Banditos logo on the upper facade. So these are, go ahead. These are some 3D views of what that would look like. This is the front. Next slide. The rear. Next slide. This is the view from Allegheny, looking west. And next slide. These are some of the materials we're looking at. So on the upper left is a product called by Reson Timber, which is a pre-finished exterior sheathing. We have two colors. One's a blackened color where the entrance will be. The other one is natural wood, which the sign will go on. We have some fiber cement board material at the base of some openings where the garage door openings are. And we have a metal canopy, which is a aluminum composite panel system, a company called Omega Light Products. And this is in a cyan blue color. Next. The main entry to the restaurant will be a storefront entry door with a kind of decorative door pull. There's a example of the roll-up doors that we're going to do in the center, and then on the back facing the deck we have the folding doors, which is an Anawam product. Next. These are sign drawings. So we have the main Banditos logo, which would be illuminated above the garage or open, the roll-up doors. And we have some paint colors selected at the top. Next. We have a mural that wraps on the black wood around the main entry feature. That's at the entry of the restaurant. Next. This is signage for the office tenants. Next. And these are just the detailed drawings for the murals. Next. And then this relates to the tenant sign. So as each tenant would have its own individual sign that would be painted as well instead of a big box sign. Next. The rear of the building, we have another Bandito sign over the outdoor deck and the paint scheme at the top. And then next. This is the other side, similar to the west side, and just details of that particular sign. So yep, that's what we're proposing. Look forward to the questions.
And first, Marta, are there any speakers from the public for this project who have signed in to speak?
No, but please let me double check with Brad and Jen. Anyone who signed? Jen, Brad?
I do not have anybody.
Me neither. Nobody.
So no speakers, Cecily.
Very good. So now I will ask you, Marta, to read through the staff report.
Jen Nugent would like to make a statement.
Yeah, this is Jennifer Nugent. I'm the Chief of Development Review in planning. And what I wanted to do with our report before Marta goes ahead and reads it, I wanted the panel to understand the DTD and what the DRP's role and responsibility is, and specifically related to signage. There is no restriction in the DTD for signage. It is up to the DRP to decide. That being said, I would like to point out that the murals that are on the sides, because they are advertising the business, they are counted as signs. And they do greatly exceed the size that would be allowed if this were not in the DTD. Additionally, a tenant of a building would not be permitted to have signs on all four sides. So I just wanted to give you all that, some food for thought as you go through this review and weigh that carefully at what kind of impact this will have in the DTD. And so with that, I will let Marta read the report into the record.
Thank you, Jen. We prepared our report, and this report will follow Baltimore County zoning regulations, quote references for the project conformance with the regulations as set forth in section 259.16 downtown Towson district. I will start with environmental sustainability. Staff recommends approval of environmental sustainability subject to the following conditions. Number one, provide an accurate site plan to demonstrate the existing conditions and the correct locations of the existing street trees and tree pits along Allegheny Avenue. Number two, label on the site plan and provide details for the outdoor sitting areas along Allegheny Avenue. In terms of block configuration and site design, the applicant does not change the existing block configuration. Staff recommend approval of the proposed site design. In terms of parking, the applicant proposes to use the existing parking. Since there are no changes, staff recommends approval of the proposed parking. In regards to downtown open space, staff recommends approval of the proposed open space subject to the following conditions. Number one, provide bike racks on the street level. Number two, provide an accurate site plan to demonstrate the existing conditions and the correct locations of the existing street trees and tree pits along Allegheny Avenue. And number three, label on the plan and provide details for the outdoor sitting areas along Allegheny Avenue. In regards to building principles and architecture, staff recommends approval of the proposed architecture subject to the following condition. Provide dimensions for the metal canopy overhangs. In regards to building materials, the proposed materials for the building facade renovation are wood, Ecotone, aluminum composite panel system, roll-up doors, and metal canopy over the entryway. Staff defers approval of the materials to the DRP. In terms of lighting, staff is unable to recommend approval of the lighting based on the following. Number one, a lighting plan showing all exterior locations of the light fixtures must be provided to make a proper assessment. Number two, clarify if any building lights will be provided. If so, label them on the building elevations. And in terms of signs, staff defers approval of the proposed signage and the mural design to the DRP and offers the following comments. Per BCZR section 450, the proposed murals are considered as signs and not mural since they advertise the business. Separately, signs located on all sides of the building are not allowed in any area of the county. Number two, the applicant needs to consider the overuse of pink and blue based on studies of other banditos restaurant locations. The application is more an accent color and not the dominant design feature. And number three, the sign advertising the building address needs to be reviewed and accepted by Baltimore County Fire Department for appropriateness. And this concludes our staff report.
Thank you, Martha. We'll now move on to the panel discussion. We will start with Mr. Yusufero.
Hi, good evening. So let me start by saying that I work in Towson, and I've worked there for 19 years, and I am absolutely thrilled to have this kind of use. Tacos and tequila sounds like nothing better.
They're good.
I'm having a hard time understanding the murals. I'm having a hard time understanding the colors. And to me, it's simply overdone. In terms of your other two locations, I did review those, and I first looked at your Federal Hill location. And I looked at, drove by and did the the Google Earth and looked at it, and it appears that, you know, that kind of inline space has a sign, has the wood type paneling behind the sign, but the upper half of the architecture doesn't have any additional signage or colors that this one is showing. Further,
Mr. Chair.
I'm sorry.
No, I'll let you finish. We don't own that building, so there's restrictions from the landlord.
Okay.
A lot of the color evolutions you're seeing are the evolution of our brand. Over the next 3 to 4 years, our goal is to open up 25 Banditos. So we have 5 coming this year. Arlington, Fairfax, one other location in Howard County that we're in final lease terms with. So what you're seeing here, just so you all are clear on like where our head is as far as this doesn't match previous Banditos. The previous Banditos downtown is 10 years old. So this is an evolution of where we're taking the brand, and our goal is eventually to get to 50 and beyond. So we're working with people right now as we develop our brand to be what our home base is. Just so you're clear where they're at. Now, if we have to tone things back and all that, we're absolutely, you know, that's why we're having these discussions. We're completely open to whatever's going to make the community happy. But just so everyone's clear, the evolution of our brand is our food trucks all pink with all these blues that we just purchased and we just got out on the road. So pink and the blues, and that's definitely going to be 100% part of our brand as we move forward. But I completely concur with a lot of the comments that I'm already hearing as far as it's a little bit much. So I'll let you continue, but I just wanted to put that out there so everybody knows where we're coming from on our end.
Excellent.
And
Yes.
if I can interrupt for a minute, can we please let all the panel members make their comments and then?
Yes, absolutely. Sorry about that.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. White, for that. So beyond the Federal Hill, I then noticed you had one in White Marsh, and I'm also in Baltimore County, and I'm very familiar with the avenue, and I did a lot of engineering work on that property, and noticed that the colors also there were not similar to this one, and similar to Federal Hills, a single sign with some wood on it. I also do a fair amount of work in Baltimore County as it relates to signs, and what the outside of the DT zone, you're allowed 3 signs, but no more, 3 total, no more than 2 per facade. So here you're showing, signs around the building. Murals count for signs, and I think it would really set a poor precedent for the county from that standpoint. So when you look at the signage, I really like the front kind of wood paneling, the sign, even the mural kind of on the front. I don't like the blue and pink stripe around the front. I don't like the both sides with the pink and the blue. And I do like actually the sign on the rear. I think that's tastefully done. That's my comments. I just, I think it's too much for Towson. Thank you.
Joe. I am going to see if I can bring up Ms. Ra's comments. Give me, well, of course, the dog's going to bark at this moment. She had to step away to teach a class this evening, so I, in her absence, will read the written comments that she sent earlier today. So again, this is from Ms. Ra. These are her comments for the Banditos. So insufficient information to grant approval based on what was presented. More information is desired on the following. Outdoor seating arrangement out to the sidewalk. 2 different versions are presented or were submitted, and how they affect the pedestrian corridor. A lighting level when dark, lighting plans with foot candles for interior exterior would be helpful. LEED NGBS level, sustainability measures, energy efficiency is a special concern with all the windows, nano doors, so good for daylighting, infiltration control fixtures, etc. Recycled or reclaimed materials from existing restaurant or other places seems to go with the style depicted and more sustainable. That's a question. How is construction waste going to be managed? Water efficiency measures not mentioned, waste management, recycling plan, including food waste management, indoor air quality, ventilation. She also notes mural on the west wall, colors are too strong and don't fit into the streetscape, also unfair to surrounding businesses as their signs are overshadowed in comparison. Recommend considering color palettes closer to the mural at Banditos Federal Hill in Baltimore. Last comment, mural stripes at top of building, recommend considering something closer to the graphics color scheme for the entry door graphics. So that's the end of her comments. I'm just reading those into record, and now we will move on to Ms. Sauce.
Thank you. Good evening. I echo some of the thoughts of the other panelists and some of the review comments. My main concern, I guess, is with the exterior lighting. I know it's an existing parking lot, but it is Towson, and we need to be mindful of creating lit areas and safe environments. And also, as a landscape architect, from the front view, I know there's that mulch panel there that's supposed to be landscaping by Baltimore County. I know you're not really doing any upgrades to the parking lot, but I think it would be great if there was some additional landscaping put in there for screening and for separating the parking lot from pedestrian circulation. Thank you.
Julie. Mr. Sharma? I'm not hearing you, Mr. Sharma.
All right. I guess I can talk now. Thank you. Looks like the color combination is overpowering rather than blending into the the streetscape or the environments. Other than that, I concur with Department of Planning's comments. One more question I have: has the number of occupancy changed from the previous business to the new proposed business?
No.
We'll hold a response to that question until the end for Jen's request. Any other further comments, Mr. Sorry, Mr. Sharma. I was reading John's name. Was that the end of your comments, Mr. Sharma?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Very good. We'll move to Matt Reynolds.
Really, I'll echo the other comments. I think the color scheme and the graphics are just too much for the building. It just feels like the whole building is encompassed in the graphics, and then you just have a small storefront. I think some of the graphics, like with the view on the screen, some of the signage might be able to be more tastefully done if you just looked at using, two different color schemes of paint, just a gloss versus a matte, a gray scheme, so to speak, so that you could see the color and the signage, but then not see it. There's some murals and signage on the Circle East property, right at the center of Towson, where they've done some tricks just with similar paint colors, but different finishes where you get some texture and some visibility, but it's a little bit simpler. It just feels like a lot. And then on this side, on the west side, I think there's a view with the additional mural on the side. I think it just, adding different types of murals seems to complicate it. It seems like there could be you could ground the building a little bit and pull some of the black back through along this facade of the building to, again, simplify it and allow that facade to kind of read around the corner a bit more. But I echo all the statements. I think it's just a little bit too colorful, and the signage is just too much for this location in Towson.
Mr. Anderson? I'm not hearing you. I don't know if you're
Cecily, Mr. Anderson, he's just a reviewer for residential project.
right. Sorry.
Oh, that's all.
Just checking off names. Sorry, I guess then I'm up. I think I went through everyone else. So I would say that I love a good mural. I do feel like the side panel murals are more about signage than they are about artistry. So I do echo that a bit. I think there might be a way to tone it down a bit, but still have some of that. I mean, I don't mind some of the incorporation of the brand, the taco logo, the banditos and tacos and tequila in that, but I agree with the other panelists in that it's a little bit overdone with the stripes. Again, less about, doesn't let the artistry of that logo or of the front mural stand out. I do like the idea of addressing this building, that it's a concrete panel building, that the front facade is black and the wing walls are more colorful. But I do appreciate and echo the response of the other panelists saying that some of the building materials should read around the facade. So I'd like to see that explored. And I would echo that. I think the artistry of the mural at the entry is a little bit more dynamic than just the pink and blue kind of logo driven mural on the side walls. I do think that the rear elevation is appropriate. The signage on that seems appropriate. And I know people do move along that alleyway. It's important to have some signage so you understand where you might park, because people do approach from the rear and then park, I believe. I wanted to, so just kind of echoing the other comments, the other items that the county had brought up that I think are important here are the bike racks. They indicated, and I would echo that there should be bike racks installed somewhere on the parcel. That could be, I don't know if there's room to the side where the parking is that doesn't obscure or conflict with pedestrian movement. That would be good. I imagine that there would be students or patrons, but student workers or patrons who might want to, or even delivery people who might be using bicycles to come to the restaurant. I think it's important to have places to lock those up and have some safety, and that goes hand in hand with proper lighting. So again, we need to see the lighting plan, both building lighting as well as any site lighting. I don't, I would say the street plantings, but they're pretty scraggly right now. I don't know if that falls in your purview, if that's really Baltimore County domain, but it certainly would be nice to put a little bit of attention into those spaces that are right in the front door. So I think we have two questions on the floor. One from Mr. Sharma. I think you remind me again about your question, Mr. Sharma.
Question about number of occupants. Has it been
number of occupants? Thank you. Okay, and then I would just ask the applicant to also respond to a question that I had about outdoor seating at the sidewalk. If you can address that comment by referring to your drawings or what your intentions are for that on the street side.
Is it the number of occupants he's looking for, or the occupancy type?
No, well, whether the occupants have increased, the number has increased over the previous restaurants, I believe was the question.
Yes.
And what's that difference? What's the change?
I'm not sure exactly what the current restaurant was.
And how many occupants then do you have currently?
I think it's roughly like 270.
Yeah, 270. something like that.
Okay, and then the second question, if you could address that about street side seating.
Well, we were proposing that we might have a few tables out front, but most of the outdoor seating is going to be in the back and the deck and the patio. And we're going to be opening up the garage door, you know, which actually most people, it'll be like you're sitting outside, but we were proposing probably having a few tables out front.
Do you happen to know your clearance? How much clear pedestrian dimension is there from the area in which might be restaurant seating to, say, the planter edge?
The whole sidewalk is like 18 feet, and I think the planters are 6 feet. So we have like 12 feet, you know, inside the planters to the building face. So if we have a, you know, 4-foot table, we still have 8 feet of clearance in front.
Yeah, thank you for that. So I think panel has discussed some a number of issues related to the murals, the lighting, signage, seating, locations, and documenting that. I'd like to see if I can ask a panel member to make a motion on this one, and I will remind whoever's making the motion that there are 3 dispositions as either, it can be determined as either approved with conditions, or additional review with a second meeting required.
Could I ask a quick question as far as for the murals and everything? So the murals that are on the front entrance, and then on, if you go back a couple slides, are on the fence on the back side of the building. So they're more Day of the Dead-ish, matching more of the interior of our White Marsh location in downtown. Like, but to this slide right here, the back fence, is something like that along the side of the wall approved, or is that too artsy and too detailed? We just want clarity before we go back to the drawing board if we have to represent something in front of you all, which clearly we're going to have to here because everyone's on the same page at this side of the building's a little bit too much. And just for reference, we're comparing this, as I said earlier, to Banditos downtown and Banditos in White Marsh. Those are landlords. We own the building here, so it's the first time we have full.
Just cut you off there because we're kind of ready to make a motion. So I appreciate the request for additional information, but you know, I will, you know, my panel, fellow panel members can disagree with me if they choose, and whoever's making the motion can put further words to this. I do think the direction that I heard, and I'm echoing this, is that the blue and pink stripes are a little aggressive and too much about signage, that we are looking for something that has a little bit more artistry, something more, I would say something more similar to the front entryway was noted a number of times. I would say that maybe the rear fence panel is a little bit too much of a montage, that it's not a, you know, a design piece, but it's really just a montage of different images. So I would lean, and I don't, you know, my other panel members who are making the motion can give a little bit more direction, but that would be how I would suggest that direction for you to study further. So with that, I'm going to ask my one of my colleagues here on the panel to make a motion.
This is Joseph Yusufero. I'd be happy to make a motion, Cecily.
Thank you.
So I make a motion to for the applicant to revise and resubmit the package that specifically removes the blue and pink colors on all 4 locations, And
There's no way we could do an approval with conditions? Because we could turn something around very quickly. We're just trying to get started on construction.
yeah, I think from what is being shown, it's just such a significant change that it's just too powerful. And so I'll make a motion to revise and resubmit, removing the pink and blue bands around the four sides, and bringing it more into the Towson, fabric, if you will. Further, I would like to accept the Department of Planning's comments, which are dated, I guess they're dated November 10th of 2021. Cecily, you may be muted.
Sorry, I had clicked off that screen. I was trying to look for the date and didn't realize that I was muted. Thank you, Joe. So Joe, I just want to ask you a question on your motion. Did you want to give them any further direction on the side murals? I know you indicated, I think, reducing or eliminating entirely the blue and pink. Is there any further direction that you want to incorporate so they have something to study further?
Sure. As I'm looking at the front architecture with the sign and the entry door and the mural, I think I've heard from the panelists that is desirable. If I look at the two sides with the sign and the taco and the sign tacos and tequila, I think that could be redone in a smaller way, while also removing the bright pink and blue stripes on the two sides and the rear. And I would also move that the applicant keeps within the maximum of 3 signs on the building, which would be consistent with the Baltimore County zoning regulations.
3 signs in total. Okay, so I might need to recap that, but I'd like to see if we could get a second, and then we'll ask the county to recap that before we vote on that. So do we have a second?
So this is Matt. Can I add something to Joe's motion?
Sure.
Can we do that, or?
Yeah, and then we'll just probably have to restate it. So that's fine. Thank you.
I just think Joe, I think the other thing to just pick up is the idea to wrap the building, the materiality of the building around, at least on the west side of the facade. And then if I can, and Jennifer, this may be a question for you. Do they have the ability to come with a couple options that they can share, or do they have to come back with one? Like, how does that process work?
So
I know it's very subjective with the art.
Matt, Jen have to leave for another meeting. She has a conflict, but we are open to a couple of options.
Okay. Yeah. So Joe, the other thing maybe to add is, if in place and Banditos want to come back, and I think some of our feedback is subjective, but I think there's different ways to do it. And I think if they had the ability to share a couple of different schemes, I think it would help to get an approval. I'm worried if they came back with another design and it's not quite there, they're going to have to come back again. But if they had the ability to come with some options, it might help them to move forward. So just if we can put that in the motion and the group agrees, it may help to move the process along and get some better feedback from them.
I agree with that. I'll just pause here and just ask if anyone else has any other discussion points or modifications before we ask Joe to perhaps recap that motion to begin. So does anyone else from the panel have any adjustments or added items? Okay, hearing none, I'm going to turn back to Mr. Usafero and ask you again to go through the motion from the start, if you would.
Okay. So I'll make a motion to request the applicant to revise and resubmit for a second design review panel meeting with the following comments. Number one, on the front facade, remove the upper pink and blue stripe. On the side facades, both sides, remove the large portion of the pink and blue stripe. Number three, this is Matt's comment, wrap the materiality of the building on the west side.
What does that mean?
Dustin, I think like on the east, like on the elevations on the east side, like it's much simpler. You have like the black wall. I think if you brought some of the black around on both the side elevations, I think it would help to ground the building a bit more. It feels so. You have the front, and I think everyone likes the front, but I think the sides are really struggling. I think if you could.
You're not talking material, you're talking paint. Color.
Yeah, exactly. I think,
Okay.
yeah, it's just
That's
the
what
color
I wanted
scheme.
to clarify because you said materiality.
Yeah, sorry. Yes, it would be the paint. Thank you.
Okay.
Matt, I'm sorry. Joe, if you could continue then.
Sure. My next condition is request the applicant to bring a few design or mural options to the public meeting, and we hope to be in a position to review and allow the applicant to proceed. And then lastly, I'd like to make the Department of Planning staff comments dated November 10th of 2021 a condition as well.
And I'm sorry, Cecily, may I interrupt? Joe, you mentioned in your first motion about number of signs. Could you please?
Right. And last comment, a condition, excuse me, would be that the applicant shows a maximum of 3 signs on the 4 facades.
You know, the current building has 4 signs.
Thank you, Joe, for recapping that, and I'll ask my other panel members if there is a second to that motion.
This is Matt. I would second that.
Thank you, Matt. So I'll ask for a vote now. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 Aye. Okay, so that motion carries, so that concludes the second item. Again, as I mentioned, item number 3 is deferred to a later DRP meeting. And do I have a motion to adjourn this panel meeting?
This is Matt. Motion to adjourn.
Do I have a second?
It's Julie Sauce. I second that.
Thank you, Julie. All in favor? Aye.
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 Very good. With that, we are adjourned. Thank you all. Appreciate the time.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you, everyone.